The sun of Selvarus IV hung low over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the charred soil and broken remains of what used to be a quiet mining settlement. The scent of scorched earth still lingered from a recent skirmish between the Varelli Syndicate and the Planetary Resistance, a conflict Earth had long chosen to remain neutral in. Yet Earth had always answered calls for help. When the civilian casualties began to rise, the Earth Alliance dispatched a humanitarian unit from the Interstellar Medical Corps, a convoy of mobile med centers, doctors, nurses, engineers, and peacekeeping drones, all unarmed. Their ships bore no weapon systems, only the Earth insignia and the unmistakable white cross on a black field, the universal symbol for peace and healing. The Krath Dominion saw it differently. To them, weakness was a disease, and mercy was a crime. When the Dominion's orbital scouts detected the convoy entering Selvarus airspace, High Commander Rhaegar, a brutal tactician with little regard for interstellar law, issued a single command: cleanse the planet. He believed that crushing Earth's healers would deliver a message far more powerful than destroying a fleet. He wanted Earth to know that no act of compassion would be tolerated in Krath territory. Dr. Tori Quinn was overseeing triage operations when the first blasts hit. She had just stabilized a wounded boy whose lungs had collapsed from plasma inhalation. Her hands were still bloodied from surgery when the sirens erupted. 3 sharp pulses followed by a shrieking wail, the signal for incoming hostiles. At first she thought it was a mistake. The landing zone was protected under the Galactic Medical Accord, ratified by every major faction in the known systems. No one would dare violate it, not openly. But as the sky tore open with the burn of descending gunships, her illusion shattered. The air filled with the screech of Krath assault thrusters and the roar of missiles slamming into the earth. One of the med centers, still occupied, erupted in flames as its roof collapsed. Dr. Quinn screamed for her assistants to evacuate, grabbing the boy in her arms as her team scrambled for the emergency shelters carved into the canyon walls. She didn't make it. Satellite footage would later show her sprinting across the dusty field, shielding the child's body as debris rained down around her. A burst of kinetic fire struck meters away, lifting her off her feet. She curled her body around the boy, absorbing the full impact. When recovery drones finally reached the site 3 days later, they found her corpse burned. Broken but still holding him. He survived. Across the camp, others fared no better. Dr. Niles Harker, the convoy's lead geneticist, was attempting to sterilize a makeshift lab when Krath foot soldiers breached the perimeter. He raised his hands, displaying the medic's white gloves and universal translator badge. The soldiers shot him in the head without pause. Nurse Ayumi Tanaka, who had spent 20 hours straight repairing the spinal damage of a paralyzed miner, was dragged from her station and impaled through the chest with a vibrolance. No one was spared, not the engineers who built the solar arrays, not the translators who tried to plead in 5 galactic tongues, not even the wounded who lay unconscious in recovery. The Dominion troops set fire to the tents, gunned down the medical bots, and broadcast their rampage live across a dozen star channels. Earth's weakness ends here, Rhaegar declared, his voice deep and metallic as he stood before a pile of charred human remains. Let this be a lesson to all who dare aid our enemies. The galaxy recoiled in horror. Even neutral factions condemned the Dominion. Memorials lit up on Earth, Luna, and the Martian colonies. 1 billion humans wept for the dead. But Earth's government said nothing. Not a single statement. No diplomatic protests, no threats. Just silence. In a darkened chamber beneath the Global Defense Coalition's headquarters on Earth, a meeting convened. No press, no recordings. Only 12 of Earth's highest military minds sat around a circular table, their faces etched with fury behind stoic expressions. Admiral Silas Monroe, a hardened veteran of the Outer Rim Wars, stood without speaking. He placed a small black case in the center of the table. Its lock required 4 simultaneous authorizations, which were given wordlessly. The case hissed open to reveal a single chip embedded with crimson circuitry, an ancient protocol created during the Black Sun Uprising, known only by its code name, Omen Protocol, Angelic Descent. The decision was unanimous. The Angels of Death would be deployed. Officially, Earth still mourned. On the networks, flags flew at half-mast, news anchors wept through interviews, ceremonies were held, speeches written. But behind the curtain, something else stirred. The Harrower, a stealth vessel registered as decommissioned, was reactivated from its deep orbital berth, its engines fired without a single beacon signal, no transmission, no destination logged. Inside, 8 operatives, some believed to be dead, others never born, readied their gear in silence. No words were needed. They had trained for years. They knew what had to be done. Each had once been human, but no longer fully so. Augmented by cybernetic implants, experimental neuroconditioning, and forbidden genetic sequences, they were the culmination of Earth's darkest experiments in asymmetrical warfare, each one specialized in precise, targeted destruction, not through brute force, but through fear, chaos, and psychological devastation. Each was known by a code name. To know their names was to be cursed. As the Harrower disappeared into the stars, its hull reflecting only void, the Earth Alliance released a single innocuous statement to the galactic press. We grieve, but we do not forget. The Karath Dominion had struck a convoy of healers, believing Earth would bend. But Earth does not bend. It waits, it watches, and when the time is right, it sends the angels. The chamber beneath Earth's Global Defense Coalition headquarters had no name. Its location was redacted from every known database, and even those few who had clearance to enter did so under biometric protocols that erased the event from official logs. Inside this chamber, where centuries of wartime doctrine met the cold silence of necessity, decisions were not debated, they were calculated. The moment the last of the 12 military leaders gave his biometric scan, the doors sealed, cutting off the world above like a lid snapping shut over a tomb. Admiral Silas Monroe sat with his eyes closed, not out of fatigue but concentration. He was known for it, a man who could recall star charts from memory and mentally simulate attack vectors without blinking. He had once held off a pirate fleet with a single destroyer and a decoy signal. But what rested on the table before him now was no military exercise. The Omen Protocol authorization key was still open, its crimson circuitry pulsing faintly with biometric confirmation. Across from him sat General Dunya Miles, the highest-ranking cyber strategist on Earth. She had spoken no word since entering the room. Her silence, however, screamed of resolution. As the chamber adjusted its lighting to neural sync mode, the table projected a holographic schematic of the Karath Dominion's military structure. Names and kill counts floated next to them, but no strategic paths were traced. That wasn't why they had gathered. The logistics of the coming response were not to be planned here. Only one purpose remained: decide. No one used spoken language inside the chamber unless the vote required it. Each officer wore a cranial link that fed into the room's neural decision hub. Votes were thoughts, pure, unfiltered. Deception was impossible. Hesitation was measured. Each micro-expression, every muscle flicker and heartbeat was recorded. From his place, Admiral Monroe initiated the session by pressing his palm to the input node. The neural interface glowed blue, confirming the session had begun. One by one, the others followed. High Admiral Zun, Commander Rafe Brennan, Tactical Architect Zara Cole, and the rest. Each one represented entire continents, orbital fleets, and deep space colonies. Their silence was not uncertainty, it was weight. The last time this protocol had even been considered, humanity stood on the brink of extinction during the Arcturus virus containment war, and even then the vote had failed. But now, there were no dissenters. The neural feed spiked as the final tally completed. 12 minds. 12 confirmations. The Omen Protocol was activated. The Angels of Death were officially mobilized. And the galaxy would never be told. Monroe stood slowly. He did not speak to the others but turned toward the chamber wall, which had begun to slide open. Behind it was a second, smaller room, the archive. Only a few ever saw it. Inside rested 2 consoles and a deep cryo locker, layered in bioreactive shielding. The second room glowed a dull silver, lit only by the cold blue of sub-zero plasma refrigeration. He stepped in and lowered his hand into the biometric reader. The system required not only his identity, but his memories, personal, painful, unredacted. The room hummed as it processed his past, childhood, military training, his first kill, his failure in the Titan outpost raid, all of it. Then came the voice, metallic and ancient, not transmitted but projected directly into his mind. Maturation confirmed. Retrieving operational key, angelic descent. A drawer extended, Inside lay a sealed crystalline cube etched with quantum identifiers that could not be replicated. Monroe took it with both hands, cradling it with the reverence of a man holding something sacred. The last time a similar cube had been activated, 10,000 enemies had vanished in a single night. He returned to the table. The others did not look at him, for they didn't need to. Each one had committed to what was to come. The cube pulsed once, then went still. Far above the chamber, in low Earth orbit, the Harrower's AI received the activation ping. No signal was sent from Earth. Only a deep space burst beam scrambled through 20 gravitational lenses reached the ship. The message was only 3 words: deploy, protocol, active. Within the ship's core, the Angels awoke. Commander Elias Rourke opened his eyes first. His vision adjusted instantly to the darkness of his chamber, not because of training, but because of implants that filtered light through a triple-layered lens. He did not ask why he had been woken. He did not speak. Instead, he stood and walked barefoot across the cold metallic floor toward the operations terminal embedded in the wall. Data began flooding in. Targets, kill orders, profiles, psychological weak points, familial ties, religious iconography, known fears. The Dominion had given no mercy. Earth would return none. Rourke tapped the operations table, bringing up mission routes. As the team's field commander, he alone saw the full path. The others would be briefed only on their roles, not on each other's. Compartmentalization was essential. The Krath were known for psionic interrogations. If captured, no one operative could compromise the whole. He moved through the briefing chambers, waking the others in silence. Each one emerged like a ghost, not from sleep, but from stillness. None of them had aged visibly. Their cybernetic systems maintained every cell in perfect stasis. But what was more unnerving was that none of them asked any questions. Not even Ensign Maeve, the youngest of the squad, who had been frozen only a year after her first kill. Within minutes, the Angels were fully operational. Armor suits were auto-fit to their enhanced bone structures. Neural overlays synced to each optic system. Weapons were distributed, not in mass, but individually tailored, unique to each operative's genetic and tactical profile. Commander Rourke received a gun that had no name, only a designation, 77.7, RD. It looked more like a surgical device than a firearm. He inspected it once, checked the core, then slid it into his holster. The Harrower's engines purred to life, silent in the void. No trace would be left in its wake. It would travel through worm space, not hyperspace, and emerge in the shadow of a moon with no atmosphere, orbiting a dead star. From there, the insertion would begin. No declarations, no warnings, no negotiation. In the decision chamber on Earth, Monroe remained standing long after the others had departed. He stared at the slowly dimming lights above the central table. He thought of Tori Quinn, though he had never met her. He imagined her final moments. The weight of the child in her arms, the heat of the blast behind her, the unbearable silence that must have followed. And then he imagined what the Dominion's command staff would feel when the Angels arrived. He let the thoughts settle in his chest like ice. He whispered to himself, not for record, not for anyone to hear. She deserved more than vengeance. But this will have to do. Then he turned, walked out of the chamber, and left the silence behind him. The fortress moon of Garak Prime rotated in silent defiance of the cold stars. Its surface a black mass of jagged steel, ancient plasma scars, and reactor towers that pumped red mist into the thin atmosphere. Deep inside its walls, Commander Val Oren of the Krath Dominion sat in his war chamber, surrounded by live tactical feeds from 8 systems. He grinned at the screen that displayed the aftermath on Selvaris 4. He had personally approved the broadcast. There was power in horror, and he wanted that power to stain the stars. Behind him, 2 lieutenants updated logistics reports. The Dominion's attention had turned to the next campaign. Selvaris was finished. Earth was quiet. There would be no retaliation. No one retaliated against the Dominion. Outside the fortress, storm drones patrolled the sky. The moon's defense grid had never been breached. Layers of electromagnetic shielding, orbital gun arrays, and proximity-based AI strike pods created what the Dominion called the uninvadable halo. Commander Orn trusted it completely. He had read the Earth Alliance's military doctrine: precision-based warfare, strategic diplomacy, slow, calculated force projection. He had laughed when Rhaegar reported Earth's silence. He had expected it. He did not expect the silence to move. At precisely 2:06 local cycle time, an alert pinged across the perimeter grid. Sector 4, Airlock Gate 19, internal pressure drop, standard maintenance fluctuation according to the AI. The alert was dismissed. 30 seconds later, Gate 19 vanished from the grid. No explosion, no breach alert, just a blank data square where the gate had once been. Lieutenant Grax reported the anomaly to command. Commander Orn waved his clawed hand. A glitch. Recalibrate the sensor sweep. Grax tapped his interface, but it froze. All across the network, cameras began to flicker. Internal lights in Corridor 9 went dark. A single feed remained active, Gate 19, flickering back online. In it, a humanoid figure walked calmly through the decompression fog. The footage had no audio, but Orin saw the shadow trailing behind the figure, a long, thin arc of something metallic. A weapon. Then the feed cut to static. 2 minutes later, Corridor 9 went completely black. 47 soldiers were stationed there. None of them reported in. Their vitals disappeared from the internal database. The automated medbay registered 0 activity. Commander Orn stood and activated full lockdown. Doors sealed. Power rerouted. Emergency beacons fired across the surface. He was too late. In Corridor 7, Ensign Maeve moved like a wraith. Her suit filtered out all electromagnetic noise. Her footsteps left no echo. Her pulse barely registered on bioscanners. The Dominion guards never saw her. The first had turned his head at the sound of a whisper, something only his species could hear. It was the last sound he processed before Maeve's blade passed through his trachea. The second fell with a soft grunt, throat pierced with a monofilament dart designed to dissolve once embedded. She retrieved her weapon, continued forward. Her target wasn't bodies, it was fear. Further below, Specialist Kale adjusted the oxygen mixture in the moon's lower reactor bay. Not for sabotage, but for suggestion. The Krath soldiers stationed near the vents began experiencing nausea, hallucinations, then full blackouts. When command rerouted the air, it was too late. Their response teams were unconscious or dead. Kale never showed himself. His work didn't require it. Commander Rourke's insertion was precise. He moved with mathematical certainty through the Dominion's interior operations node. 2 officers stood between him and the control mainframe. He didn't break stride. His left hand released a silent pulse that disrupted the cortical implants in both targets. They dropped, convulsing, then fell still. Rourke approached the mainframe and inserted a single spike. Earth's systems were not designed to interface with Dominion tech, but the spike was not an interface. It was a virus, custom-made, genetically locked to his DNA. It accessed the command logs, broadcast data, and classified transmissions. Within seconds, every Dominion base in the sector received a silent signal. Under attack. Reinforcements required at Gorak Prime. None responded. The Angel, stationed in the subatmospheric core chamber, call sign Revenant, detonated a sound null field and stepped into the reactor coolant maze. The guards heard nothing. When their bodies were found later, each had a single incision above the sternum. No alarms had gone off. No witnesses had survived. The Dominion had trained for war, not for ghosts. Commander Orn watched helplessly as his feed disintegrated into cascading static. The moon's defense grid showed multiple internal failures. Power relay sectors went dark one after another. He turned to his last remaining officer, Lieutenant Korv. "Activate the neural override," he ordered. Korb tried. The system rejected his code. He tried again. This time the terminal spoke in a calm, female voice, one not programmed into any Dominion system. "Neural override disabled. Protocol priority, Earth Omen active. This facility is compromised." Korf reached for his sidearm, but Orin grabbed his wrist. "Seal the command chamber." Before the doors could close, the lights died. In the pitch dark, silence stretched until it fractured. A soft tone rang out, a breath. And then, one by one, the red emergency lights flickered on. In the center of the room stood Commander Rourke. His armor shimmered with reactive camouflage until it settled into matte black. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't need to. Commander Orn stared at him, frozen. His instincts screamed to flee, but he didn't move. "Who are you?" he managed to say. Rourke didn't answer. Instead, he tapped his wrist. The holographic image of Dr. Tori Quinn appeared between them, captured moments before her death. She was shielding the child, eyes defiant. Oren recognized the scene from his own broadcast, but now it had been reversed. Her image burned brighter. His face was reflected in the glass, guilty, weak, small. Then Rourke spoke. "You remember her? Good. Remember this, too." He fired once. The shot passed through Oren's eye and out the back of his skull. The Dominion officer dropped without ceremony. Lieutenant Corv tried to raise his weapon, but he was too slow. Rourke moved forward, struck twice, and left him gasping on the floor. Within minutes, the Angels regrouped in the Harrower's concealed bay. No words were spoken. The mission log updated silently. 14 objectives complete. 47 confirmed kills. 19 psychological disruptions. 1 broadcast inserted into the galactic network. Retribution has arrived. The Harrower vanished before the Dominion could even register what had happened. The Fortress Moon's systems rebooted, but the core remained corrupted. The body count rose as maintenance crews uncovered hidden bodies in ventilation shafts, data cores, and command bunkers. Each kill bore no signature, only a burned white cross. Back on Earth, Admiral Monroe stood before a classified command feed. The footage showed Dominion officials scrambling across diplomatic channels, denying, blaming, threatening. The galaxy watched. Earth said nothing. He closed the feed and whispered again, "One down." Then he turned to prepare for the next strike. The morning after Gorak Prime fell, the Krayrath Dominion initiated blackout protocols across all remaining strongholds. Panic had no place in war, yet it moved faster than any battlecruiser. The High Council convened in a subterranean vault beneath the storm-racked surface of Darth Nix, a planet choked in red haze and shielded by defense satellites older than most empires. The chamber, once a monument to iron-willed order, now rang with arguments, denials, and cracks in the once unified voice of the Dominion. High Commander Rhaegar stood at the apex of the war table, clawed hands gripping the edge as his blood-red eyes darted between failing system feeds. Beside him, Strategist Vok hissed through sharpened teeth as he attempted to patch a corrupted transmission relay. He failed. The system refused him. One by one, the reports arrived. Not through official channels, but in bursts of unsanctioned footage, smuggled by frightened officers, leaked by defectors, or simply embedded in recovered black boxes. In each case, the result was the same: silence where there should have been a base. Dozens of outposts, fortress hubs, listening towers, and relay stations had gone dark. Commanders found dead in sealed rooms. Soldiers cut down by unseen hands. Storage cores corrupted, logs erased. No patterns, no warnings. Only a single symbol burned or carved at each location. A white cross on black. Rhaegar watched one feed in silence. It was from a facility orbiting the binary system of Krell's Divide. The last image before its deletion showed a Dominion scientist pinned to a wall with her own metal prosthetic, her face contorted in disbelief. Around her, the lab was untouched, nothing stolen, nothing damaged. She had been the architect of a weaponized pathogen. Earth had found her. Rhaegar shut the feed and clenched his jaw. "We underestimated Earth," he said quietly. "We mistook mercy for cowardice." Strategist Vok slammed his fist against the console. "Then we crush them now, burn their colonies, scorch their oceans, make their sun weep hydrogen." "No," Rhaegar snapped. "You didn't see what I saw on that feed. You didn't feel it. This isn't war. This is personal. Earth didn't send ships or fleets. Earth sent monsters." Vok spat in disgust. "Then we become worse monsters. We never got the chance." 12 hours after the Harrower left Gorak Prime, the Angels descended upon the Dominion's deep space communications array in the Tryst Belt. The installation was shielded by rotating asteroid fragments and patrolled by drone squadrons with advanced predictive targeting algorithms. No ship could have approached unnoticed. Yet the Harrower did not approach. It folded in silently within one of the asteroids, its hull disguised with mimic plating. From within the rock's hollowed-out cavity, Maeve exited first, crawling through fractured ore tunnels like a serpent. When she emerged onto the outer spine of the array, she clamped to its rotating axis and disappeared into its blind spot. Inside the station, Commander Valen Rowe stirred his cup of extract tea, unaware that his oxygen levels had dropped by 3%. By the time his security captain noticed the anomaly, half the station had already gone silent. A single alert pinged on his display: external malfunction, source unknown. He rose, moved toward the emergency panel, and froze when the room's lights flickered. On the wall beside the sealed door, someone, or something, had carved a symbol with surgical precision. He recognized it instantly. He drew his sidearm, fired into the darkness, and backed toward the comm station. As he activated the distress signal, he felt cold metal slip against his throat. Maeve whispered one word, "Too late." The feed went dark before the Council on Darathex could receive it. Strategist Vox stared at the empty channel, his breathing ragged. "That was our last off-world relay." Rhaegar turned to the others. "We are not dealing with assassins. We are facing a system designed to dismantle everything we built. And it's working." He summoned every remaining fleet commander and issued a single, unambiguous order. Regroup at Arvak's Crown, the Dominion's central war staging facility hidden deep within a nebula cloud in Sector B-43. No foreign vessel had ever passed through the mist without being atomized, the nebula's radiation warp sensors, and the facility was protected by 7 rings of autonomous defense platforms. It had been built to withstand planetary sieges. Rhaegar believed it would be the last place Earth would strike. He was wrong. The Angels didn't attack the front. They infiltrated from within. Specialist Kale had already breached the systems weeks before, during a minor skirmish meant to draw Dominion attention away from the region. While the Dominion focused on deploying reinforcements, Kale embedded himself in the ghost protocols of the station's AI lines of dormant code waiting to be activated. The moment the Dominion fleet docked, the code awakened. Docking clamps malfunctioned, locking ships in place, internal oxygen mixtures destabilized, AI defense drones received new orders and began targeting their own hangars. Chaos spread like wildfire, and in the center of it all, Rourke walked through the command center dressed in Dominion armor he had taken from a previous target. His helmet concealed his identity, but not his movements. Those were too precise, too calm. As alarms blared and the Dominion's proudest commanders screamed orders into broken comm links, Rourke activated the data spike embedded in the main terminal. The AI paused, recognized his signal, and transferred control. The station's automated broadcast system reactivated. Across the entire Dominion network, every remaining military feed played a single message. A video, Tory Quinn's last stand, followed by footage from Gorak Prime, then the Tryst Belt, then the mass graves uncovered on Selvaris 4, then a final still image, Rourke, helmet off, staring directly into the camera. Behind him, Dominion soldiers knelt in surrender, not captured, not coerced, kneeling of their own will, broken by something greater than fear. Commander Rhaegar smashed the terminal in rage, but the feed had already gone viral. Across the galaxy, neutral factions began closing their ports to Dominion vessels. Trade routes shut down, longtime allies withdrew diplomatic presence. Whispers of Earth's vengeance, once dismissed as myth, now traveled faster than official broadcasts. The Angels were no longer a secret. On the Harrower, as it glided away from the ruins of Arvak's Crown, the mission log updated once more. No celebration, no acknowledgement, just one word. Complete. In her personal chamber, Maeve sat in silence, her helmet resting in her lap. She stared at the scar on her forearm. An old wound from Earth's earliest planetary war. A reminder that peace was never gifted. It was earned through sacrifice. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She simply stared until the ship's soft alert signaled the next coordinates. Commander Rourke entered the command deck and placed the final data core onto the console. It pulsed once, transmitting its contents back to Earth. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Monroe watched it download. He read the report, then deleted it. He already knew how it ended, with silence, and with the knowledge that reckoning had only begun. The command center on Darthix 6 had lost its shape. What was once a monument of precision and power now resembled a carcass. Shattered panels, flickering wall screens, loose wires swaying like dead vines. The floor beneath High Commander Rhaegar cracked with every step as he made his way to the final war terminal, flanked by a pair of blood-soaked guards who hadn't spoken since the internal riots had begun. He didn't need their voices. The silence spoke loudly enough. The Dominion had collapsed from within before Earth had ever launched a fleet. He stood before the last active command console and his eyes scanned a list of names. His generals, his architects, his executioners. Each one marked as neutralized. Some were confirmed dead, others simply erased. No trace left behind but the symbol scorched into a wall, etched into glass, or projected onto a corpse's face like a brand from the void. The angels had not only killed, they had dismantled the entire command structure. Without ceremony, without a single speech, he could not understand it. Rhaegar tightened his grip on the edge of the console. His mind swirled with the memory of how many times he had spat on peace, called mercy a weakness, turned medicine into a crime. He had justified it, every decision, every death, every policy. He had believed he was shaping a future of dominance. Clean, efficient, inevitable. Now, all he had shaped was a grave. Behind him, the sound of boots clicking echoed through the ruined chamber. He turned. Alone, framed by the fractured steel doors, stood Commander Rourke. He wore no helmet. His face was pale, unreadable, marked with faint burn scars near the left jawline. His armor was untouched, but the edges glowed with thin veins of faint blue light, a sign of overclocked neural synchronization. His eyes locked onto Rhaegar's with the steady calm of someone who had already made peace with death. Rhaegar did not reach for his weapon. He knew it was pointless. He simply asked, "Why now?" Rourke stepped forward, his voice low, precise. "Because you taught the galaxy what happens when healers bleed." Rhaegar's voice cracked with fury. "We are a warrior people. You've met us with assassins, cowards, ghosts in the dark. You met us with slaughter," Rourke said. "We answered with clarity." Rhaegar opened his mouth to protest, to justify, but no words came. He saw nothing in Rourke's face, not anger, not vengeance, not even satisfaction. There was only purpose. "You could have asked for surrender," Rhaegar said finally. "You weren't worthy of surrender," Rourke replied. He raised his sidearm, not standard issue, but a Matt Decker variant with a single purpose. He fired once. Rhaegar's body dropped in silence, and his final breath escaped into the dust as nothing more than vapor. Outside the command tower, the remaining guards didn't resist. Some knelt. Others dropped their weapons and walked into the mist, never looking back. No orders would come, no reinforcements. The Dominion was dead in spirit, and soon it would be dead in form. Back aboard the Harrower, Maeve stood in front of the central console as the final command signal was transmitted. She initiated the last phase of the operation, information dispersal. Every galactic archive, independent database, and major media node received a secured transmission, impossible to block or decrypt. The message contained no propaganda, no threats, no declarations of power, only evidence. It included the massacre logs, audio clips, autopsy files, AI transcriptions, and visual proof from every site Earth's medical convoys had once served. It documented each broken treaty, every civilian casualty, every denial from the Dominion's court. Then, appended at the end, was footage recorded from Rourke's armor, uncut, unedited, raw. The moment when Dr. Tori Quinn shielded the child with her body. The file ended with the following words: "Mercy is not submission, compassion is not weakness, and healing is sacred. Let this stand as history's warning. Harm Earth's healers, and Earth will remember." The Harrower's engines pulsed silently as it departed the edge of Darathanix, leaving behind the drifting shell of a fallen regime. The Angels had no more targets. The operation had ended. Rourke entered the observation deck alone. His armor hissed as the magnetic seals disengaged. He removed his gloves, pressed his bare hand against the glass, and watched the stars. His face showed no triumph, only stillness. He knew that history would twist the story. Some would call him a monster, others a savior. Both would be wrong. He was simply what Earth needed when peace was torn apart. Behind him, Maeve entered and stood silently beside him. She didn't speak, and he didn't turn. After a long moment, he finally said, "It's over." She nodded, for now. He glanced sideways at her. "Do you regret it?" She didn't hesitate. "No." "Do you?" Rourke looked back at the stars. "I regret that we were needed." Far across the galaxy, in places where no Earth ship had flown and no human foot had touched, the message was received. The cross, once a symbol of healing, had taken on a second meaning, a promise of judgment. Factions that had once mocked Earth's restraint now strengthened their diplomatic ties. Regions that had turned away medical aid quietly reopened their ports. And in hidden chambers where tyrants whispered, the name of the Angels of Death passed between lips like a curse, a myth. a warning, but the angels had gone silent. On Earth, Admiral Monroe decommissioned the protocol and sealed the command chamber once more. The cube was locked away. No press release was issued, no medals awarded. The public never saw their faces. The dead were mourned quietly, and those who survived continued their work, rebuilding, healing, hoping. In the ruins of Salvaris 4, where the ash still stained the soil, a new facility was constructed. Not a monument of war, but a new medical center. At its entrance stood a statue, not of soldiers, not of weapons, but of a woman holding a child in her arms, her face turned upward as if shielding him from the sky. Beneath it, etched into stone, were 4 words: "Let mercy endure longer." And so the story ended, not with conquest, not with pride, but with remembrance. The angels returned to silence, the harrower vanished into classified orbit, and the galaxy learned a truth it would never forget. Earth does not forget its healers, and Earth does not forgive their murderers.